Hello everybody, it's Jamie from Old Shipping Lines, and welcome back to another video. Today, we're diving into the history of a legendary ocean liner. She started as a German vessel, part of the impressive Imperator class, surviving a world war and later sailing under the stars and stripes for the United States. Today, we'll be diving into the full story of the SS Leviathan, from her beginnings as the SS Vaterland all the way to her final days and scrapping. As I mentioned earlier, her life began as the SS Vaterland, with her first owners being the Hamburg America Line, a well-known shipping company. She was constructed by the German shipbuilders Blohm and Voss, located in the city of Hamburg. The SS Vaterland was the second ship in a trio of massive vessels known as the Imperator class. The first of this series was the SS Imperator, which would later serve as the RMS Berengaria for the Cunard line. The third and final ship in the trio was the SS Bismarck, later renamed the RMS Majestic for the White Star line. Now, let's discuss some specifics of the SS Vaterland. The gross tonnage of this vessel would be 59,956 gross registered tons. Her length stretched to 950 feet, and she had a beam measuring 100 feet. Construction of the SS Vaterland began in September 1911. The existing 1906 to 1907 construction berths were not large enough to accommodate the ship, so a new berth was built between 1910 and 1911. This new berth had a width of 288 feet at the waterfront and stood 166 feet high from the floor to the crane runway. It was partially designed for the new vessel, extending 1,025 feet in length, equipped with 16 traveling cranes and a 230-ton revolving crane to handle the ship's machinery. The Vaterland was constructed to meet the shipbuilding regulations of Germany, Britain, and the United States. She was designed with a double bottom and double hull extending above the waterline, reinforced with both transverse and longitudinal steel bulkheads. The ship featured 5 steel decks plus 4 superimposed decks, giving her a total of 9 decks above the waterline. In a unique design, the funnels were positioned along the sides of the hull rather than at the center, allowing for a completely new layout of the public rooms. These rooms flowed seamlessly into one another, creating a grand vista from the Ritz-Carlton restaurant oval in shape and modeled after the original in New York through the Palm Garden, grand hallway, and into the main lounge and ballroom. A grand staircase spanning 6 decks was complemented by elevators. The wireless system, provided by Telefunken, a Marconi competitor based in Berlin, was the most advanced ever installed on a ship at that time. It included a long-distance set for constant communication across the Atlantic, a secondary system with a range of 400 miles by day and 1,200 miles by night, and a battery-powered emergency set. Of the 83 lifeboats, which could carry about 5,300 people, 2 motorized boats were also equipped with wireless communication. The ship's power came from 46 water tube boilers housed in 4 stokeholds, providing steam to the turbines that drove the 4 19-foot 7-inch diameter screws. The Vaterland was capable of reaching a speed of 26 knots. The SS Vaterland was launched on April 3rd, 1913 in a ceremony officiated by Ruprecht, Crown Prince of Bavaria. The ship was designed to accommodate 4,050 passengers, 700 in first class, 600 in second class, 1,050 in third class, and 1,700 in fourth class. With a crew of 1,200, the total number of people on board was planned to be 5,250. The ship was equipped with 83 lifeboats, providing more than enough capacity for everyone aboard. Upon completion, the SS Vaterland became the largest passenger ship in the world, surpassing the SS Imperator, though she was later overtaken by the final ship in the class, the SS Bismarck. On her maiden voyage, the ship docked in New York on May 21st, 1914, with a crew of 1,234 under the command of Hapag Captain Hans Reuser. The ship was extensively electrified, featuring an electric forced air system to ensure fresh air circulation throughout the ship. During a reception luncheon aboard the Hamburg American Line's Hoboken Piers on her maiden voyage, attended by the German ambassador and company officials, Albert Gleaves, then commandant of the New York Navy Yard and later commander of the cruiser and transport force during the First World War. He asked an official how many troops the ship could transport. The official replied, 10,000, and we built her to bring them over here. 3 years later, at the same pier, which had by then been taken over by the Army's Hoboken port of embarkation, and with the ship under a new name, Gleaves was again present, this time overseeing convoy operations in the Atlantic as the ship prepared to carry 10,000 soldiers to fight against Germany. The SS Vaterland had completed only a few voyages before arriving in New York City in late July 1914, right as World War I erupted, with British naval dominance making safe passage to Germany uncertain. The ship was laid up at her Hoboken terminal and remained inactive for nearly 3 years. During World War I, the United States Shipping Board seized the Vaterland when the U.S. entered the war on April 6, 1917. Of all the German vessels taken, Vaterland was unique in that she had not suffered intentional damage to her engines and machinery by her crew. The German crew was sent to an internment camp in Hot Springs, North Carolina, where many later succumbed to a typhoid fever outbreak in the summer of 1918, just before their transfer to Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. Despite being spared from deliberate sabotage, the ship was in poor condition and required extensive repairs, cleaning, and painting. Progress was slow under the USSB, leading the Navy to recommend taking over the repair process. As a result, the Vaterland was officially handed over to the United States Navy in June 1917, becoming the last of the German ships to be turned over for repair and conversion. The ship was commissioned by the United States Navy in July 1917 as the USS Vaterland, with Captain Joseph Wallace Oman in command. On September 6, 1917, she was redesignated SP-1326 and renamed Leviathan by President Woodrow Wilson. During a trial cruise to Cuba on November 17, 1917, Captain Oman ordered 241 Marines on board to replace a detachment and positioned them prominently on the upper decks. This was intended to create the impression from shore that the massive ship was preparing to deploy overseas to support the American Expeditionary Forces. Upon her return later that month, the Leviathan reported for duty with the cruiser and transport force. The transport set sail for Europe on December 17th, 1917, carrying 7,250 troops to Liverpool, England. While the ship's large size was a significant advantage in troop capacity, it also limited the ports and repair facilities available in Europe. Upon arrival, the ship entered dry dock, but could only do so during full moon tides, which were necessary to lift the vessel over the dock's sill. During her 50 days there, her troop capacity was increased to 8,200. She was also repainted with a British dazzle camouflage scheme that she would carry for the remainder of the war. After returning to New York, her capacity was further raised to 8,900. On March 4th, 1918, she departed for Liverpool again, but was diverted to Brest due to inadequate berthing and coaling facilities in Liverpool. By early summer 1918, her troop capacity had been increased to 10,500. The USS Leviathan began regular voyages between the Hoboken port of embarkation and Brest, France, transporting up to 14,000 troops on each voyage. Once the crew gained experience in troop embarkation, they could load 11,000 troops onto the ship in just 2 hours. To meet the increased demand for troop transport in response to the German offensive in March 1918, a system was implemented where soldiers shared bunks, taking turns to sleep. This innovation effectively doubled the ship's capacity from 7,000 to 14,000 troops. Sailing alongside the Northern Pacific and Great Northern without escort, the USS Leviathan's speed was a significant advantage. In June 1918, the German Admiralty falsely announced that Leviathan had been sunk with American troops on board. The German press enthusiastically claimed that the former Vaterland, now converted to an American troop transport, had been lost. However, this confusion stemmed from the sinking of the British troop ship Justitia, not the USS Leviathan. On September 29th, 1918, the Leviathan departed New York for Brest on a voyage that would tragically see the worst in-transit casualties of the second wave of the Spanish flu. By the time she arrived in Brest on October 8th, 2,000 troops were sick and 80 had died. After the signing of the armistice, transports, including the Leviathan, underwent essential overhauls in preparation for the significant effort to return troops home. Following this period, the USS Leviathan was repainted gray by December 1918 and began transporting veterans back to the United States, completing 9 westward crossings, the last of which concluded on September 8, 1919. On October 29, 1919, the Leviathan was decommissioned and transferred to the U.S. Shipping Board, where she was laid up at Hoboken until future employment plans could be determined. Before the armistice was signed on November 11, 1918, the ship had completed 10 round voyages from Hoboken to Europe, transporting over 119,000 soldiers. By the end of World War I, the U.S. Shipping Board was tasked with managing an excess of ships and government-sponsored shipping companies. On December 17, 1919, the International Mercantile Marine signed a contract with the U.S. Shipping Board's Emergency Fleet Corporation to oversee the rehabilitation of a ship, IMM. along with 2 committees of shipyard experts, planned to recondition and convert the vessel from coal to oil fuel. However, due to high costs and heavy workloads in shipyards, the EFC decided to delay the process after receiving only 1 bid. In March 1921, the EFC initiated the preparation of new specifications that included machinery repairs and the outfitting of the ship with essential items such as linens and silverware. Since the original blueprints from Germany were not received following the Treaty of Versailles, a team of workers created new plans by measuring the SS Leviathan. A new solicitation for bids was issued on October 31st, 1921, and the Newport News Shipbuilding and Dry Dock Company was awarded the contract for $6.1 million on February 15, 1922. Additional contracts for machinery repairs and outfitting brought the total cost to $6.7 million, while Gibbs and Cox, overseeing the project, received $1.5 million for their services. In agreement with the International Mercantile Marine, the Emergency Fleet Corporation cancelled its agency contract and awarded it to Gibbs Brothers, who assumed all functions and obligations previously held by IMM on February 28, 1922. Newspaper mogul William Randolph Hearst, capitalizing on nationalistic sentiment, had criticized IMM's involvement, claiming it represented British influence. Despite a lengthy lay-up at Hoboken, the SS Leviathan was quickly readied for departure. With repairs and essential gear provisioned, she was fueled and crewed, setting sail for Norfolk on April 9, 1922, and arriving without incident at the shipyard on April 10th. There, the ship underwent 14 months of reconditioning and refurbishment. All wiring, plumbing, and interior layouts were stripped out. The hull was strengthened, and her boilers were converted from coal to oil, resulting in a vessel that was virtually new. While the ship was undergoing reconstruction, the Hoboken facilities were modified to accommodate its large operations. Pier 5 was removed, and the area between Piers 4 and 6 was dredged to a depth of 45 feet. Plans shifted, and the decision was made to dock the ship in Manhattan, with an agreement in place with United American Lines to use Pier 86 at the foot of 46th Street. This change necessitated strengthening the pier and dredging to create both a channel and a turning basin. Dredging was carried out to a depth of 42 feet for 1,000 feet upstream and downstream, as well as clearing obstructions with the help of divers to prepare a suitable berth for the ship. The SS Leviathan was refurbished by New York architects Walker and Gillette, blending Edwardian, Georgian, and Louis XVI styles with modern 1920s elements. A notable change was the addition of an Art Deco nightclub, which replaced the original Veranda Cafe. In June 1923, the ship was returned to the U.S. Shipping Board, boasting an increased tonnage of 59,957 gross registered tons and an impressive speed of 27 knots. Thanks to strategic marketing and favorable conditions, she was promoted as the world's largest and fastest ship, although this claim was contested by Cunard Line's Mauretania and White Star Line's Majestic. In the upcoming fiscal year, her original four-bladed propellers were slated for replacement with more efficient three-bladed ones, which were expected to enhance speed while reducing horsepower. The United States Lines, the operating entity of the USSB's Emergency Fleet Corporation, was required to operate the SS Leviathan for a minimum of 5 return voyages on the Atlantic each year. All financial matters for the line were controlled by the USSB, which also owned all the ships. Gibbs Brothers Incorporated would manage her initial voyages and train the crew. The ship quickly became popular with the American public in the 1920s, starting her career fully booked for her maiden voyage, which departed on July 4th, 1923. On December 21st, 1923, the Leviathan ran aground on the west side of the channel near Robbins Reef Light in New York at 10:44 a.m. The ship remained grounded until it was lifted by the tide and assisted by tugs at 5:30 p.m. A strong tidal current altered the ship's course, and despite traveling at a reasonable speed and having the engines put in full reverse, she grounded from the bow to just forward of the bridge. Reports indicated that the ship's outboard engines had been inoperative in reverse for some time. An investigation by the United States Steamboat Inspection Service found no negligence, but noted that the grounding could have been avoided if the wing propellers had been fully operational. They also emphasized that maneuvering a ship of that size in the harbor was quite challenging. One outcome of the incident was the withdrawal of waters reserved for large naval vessels, forcing commercial ships to make a turn in the Narrows into the upper bay. The grounding prompted a comprehensive review of the costs and technical challenges associated with repairing the inoperative reverse turbines. By 1926, the SS Leviathan was averaging 1,300 passengers per voyage, making her the second most traveled ship on the Atlantic. In 1927, she achieved a record 40,537 passengers for the year, including a remarkable 2,741 passengers on a single eastbound crossing in September. Despite her popularity, the ship struggled to remain profitable due to high labor and fuel costs, along with prohibition, which rendered all US registered ships dry and drove passengers to competitors that served alcohol. Nonetheless, the SS Leviathan remained a symbol of American power and prestige, celebrated as the largest and fastest ship in the US merchant marine. While economically unviable, she was cherished by loyal passengers and frequently featured in advertisements. Her only major incident occurred during a violent storm in 1924, where she encountered 90-foot waves and 100 miles per hour winds, resulting in damage and 32 passengers injured. In 1929, the United States Lines was put up for sale, along with 2 additional ships, Monticello and Mount Vernon, although they were not included in the final bid. 6 bids were received, and on February 14th, the proposal from P.W. Chapman Company of New York was accepted after a Senate Committee on Commerce hearing found no objections. The sale, which also included the American Merchant Lines, was finalized on March 21st, 1929, with the SS Leviathan being the first ship delivered on April 8th. A stipulation of the sale required the new owners to construct 2 first-class liners, approved by the U.S. Shipping Board and Navy, to operate alongside the SS Leviathan. They were also obligated to maintain a minimum of 61 voyages per year across all purchased vessels for a decade. The sale of the 2 lines and 11 vessels totaled $16,082,000, with the SS Leviathan valued at $6,782,000, marking the end of the U.S. Shipping Board's passenger services. The Merchant Fleet Corporation, which had overseen operations, began the process of dissolution, affecting its 630 employees. In October 1931, United States Lines was reincorporated as United States Lines of Nevada, Inc., with the backing of the U.S. Shipping Board following financial difficulties. The International Mercantile Marine, which had acquired the line at auction, aimed to distance itself from the struggling SS Leviathan. The Great Depression intensified these challenges, leading to the USSB's dissolution, with its functions reduced to a bureau within the Department of Commerce on August 10, 1933. The United States Lines sought government assistance to either reclaim the Leviathan or subsidize her operations. By June 1933, the ship was laid up in Hoboken, New Jersey, having incurred losses of $75,000 per round trip since 1929. The government insisted that the SS Leviathan must resume sailing, resulting in a $150,000 refurbishment to facilitate 5 additional round voyages. The first voyage on June 9th, 1934, during peak season, incurred a loss of $143,000, and by the 5th voyage, she was operating at less than half capacity. Ultimately, IMM paid the government $500,000 to retire the SS Leviathan while keeping her operational until 1936. In 1937, she was sold to British Metal Industries Limited. On January 26, 1938, the SS Leviathan embarked on her final transatlantic voyage, commanded by Captain John Binks, the retired master of the RMS Olympic. He was accompanied by a crew of 125 men, hired to guide the ship to the breakers. As author Melvin Maddox noted, Binks wasn't the luckiest of men, and now he had a ship to match his misfortune. Steering the aging vessel to her demise proved as challenging as navigating her elsewhere. The SS Leviathan reached Rosyth, Scotland, on February 14th. Over her 13 years of service with the United States Lines, she carried more than 250,000 passengers, but never turned a profit. Due to her size and the outbreak of World War II, final demolition didn't occur until 1946. And that marks the end of a video, my friends. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now, if you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing to the channel, as that would help out the channel a lot. Now, if you have any thoughts, comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section down below, as I absolutely love reading your comments. And please let me know in the comment section down below as well what ships you would like me to cover in the future. Now be as well sure to check out our social media pages. We are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, and we also recently have a website, oldshippinglines.com, where we have articles of the ships we cover and we have book reviews as well. I think you will enjoy the website very much. Now, with that out of the way, guys, I wish you all a good night or day, wherever you are. Stay safe, stay happy, and we will see each other on the next video. Goodbye, my friends.